Okay, good Erev Shabbos. We are now starting the Parshas of the Bein the Mishkan, our Beis Hamikdash, also the Mishkan V'Shachanti B'Tocham. And it's this time of the year, which for me it's always quite perturbing. As I once mentioned, every year I try to understand why this theme is central to my life and to my Judaism. Actually, quite puzzling, because growing up in the Western world, the idea of having a temple with animal sacrifices and sprinkling blood and music, the whole ritual there is quite foreign to me. To the extent that many years I would sit down and take a long time before Tisha B'Av time to figure out what exactly I'm missing. And this thing always pops up again when we do Truma, Tetzaveh, Kisisa, Vayaka, Pekude. That's a lot of Chumash, dealing with all the different particulars of this Mishkan. I'd like to somehow find some niche of my own, trying to understand how it's relevant to me, and I'm sure that every person should be doing the same for themselves. Ramban elaborates in Parshas Vayakel how everything is written like repeated and repeated and repeated, both the general picture and then the particulars and the general picture and the particulars, the klalim and the pratim. And he has a very strong sentence there. He says, until the person understands the total picture, he won't be able to understand the particulars. It's only after you see the broad picture of how everything's supposed to work, then you can begin to understand the intricacy of each dimension, each material, each everything. He says the greatness of the Chachmei Lev was that they actually understood the big picture of its purpose, its meaning, what it's supposed to be doing, and thus could comprehend and do well in creating those particulars. Overall in life, it's always that way. It's when you understand the goal of things, you understand what it's supposed to mean, then you can start dealing with the externalities. It's that way in religion, it's that way in many things. Taking, for example, even interpersonal relationships, if you understand what this is all about and where you're going with it, so then you understand the importance of, taking down the garbage can. And that becomes important because you see it in a certain context. So I'd like to share with you a small context what I have when it comes to this. The Malbim writes in his Hagdama here to Parshas Truma, also found in another book of his, where he describes what's the purpose of the Mishkan. So he says, honestly, in truth, man, on the first day of his creation, fell from objective seeing things the way they really are into subjective, imaginary realities. Rambam says we are called Tselem Elokim because we have that in common with God. See, God sees things the way they really are. The way it really is. As the Gemara says, when Rav Yehuda once told his Rebbe, you know what I saw when I, so to speak, went up to heaven? Elyonim lamata, betachtoinim lamala. That which we see are simple people and downtrodden, they're actually on the pinnacle, they're at the top of the pyramid in God's eyes. And that which we see are the leaders and the great, they're actually at the lower end of the pyramid in the eyes of God. God does not judge things by their external veneer, doesn't judge things by their externalities. He sees, what are you for real? Everything he sees in an objective way. And man had that capability, and man lost that by eating this Eitz Hadas. And then all of a sudden on Vav Sivan, that came back. Ani amarti Elohim atem uvnei elyon kulchem. You say that in Shir Shoyom. Yes, that happened on Vav Sivan. Matan Torah, Luchas Rishonos. The world was rectified again, and once again we stopped seeing things in almost a la-la land of man-made imagination. We saw things through their objective truths, through the science, through the math, through the metaphysics. There was no shame of the human body because the body was nothing more than a tool of serving God. Thus, there's no reason to hide the nose more than there's a reason to hide anything else in the body. It's only once man stopped seeing things the way they were and created imaginary realities, attributing meanings to things which have no basis, that certain parts of the body became something which is private and shouldn't be exposed in public. And that's when Adam and Eve had to put on clothes. But 39 days later, we lost that. And once again, we sunk into the abyss of imaginary reality and just didn't see things the way they were. So the Rambam says that originally the first Mishkan was supposed to be the Mishkan of man. God does not need a tabernacle. God does not need or care about animal sacrifices or any ritual. God actually wanted us to be the living tabernacle. That our brain and our mind should be the Kodesh HaKodashim. And our thoughts should be the Luchos HaBris. And our heart should be our Mizbeach. And if there's anything to sacrifice, it's what the Balatanya says, Adam ki Yaakov, a man wants to come close to God, Mikem korban LaHashem. You have to give up something. Min haboka, min hatzayin, there's different types of inclinations, what he called the experiential self, the nefesh habahamis. What are you willing to give up in order to get closer to God? It almost sounds like God is Shylock. He wants his pound of flesh. Give up something. That was your korban. Bilvavi, Mishkan, Evneh, etc., famous song. Yes, my mind is supposed to be the Kodesh HaKadosh. Reb Chaim Volozhiner writes that a person which has machshavot lo tahurot, he's worse than Titus, which had engaged in a sexual encounter with a prostitute on the floors of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Because man's mind is his Kodesh HaKadoshim, and he's supposed to be filling it with Oren HaBris, with the understanding of a covenantal relationship with God, and understanding what that means. It's supposed to fill his mind. He's supposed to give himself up to a world of thought in God. But man sunk into imagination and doesn't just have it in himself anymore. So God has to create an external facade, external mishkan, which with there he is in dialogue with man, as the Ramban says, the Kodesh HaKadoshim, Mishom Ira'eh ala Kaporas. Nevuah comes through the Kodesh HaKadoshim, where we will see things and try to understand what they mean, and to that emulate it to ourselves. We will look at the sanctuary of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, we'll understand that Oren HaBris has to be in our heart, in our minds. We look at the Mizbeach, we understand that's where we're supposed to put our hearts are. We see the goats and the sheep and the bulls, we understand that is what we're supposed to be sacrificing, our inner goat, our inner bull, our inner sheep. Different types of experiential self, which the Rebbe discusses at length in the Likutei Torah, Parshas Vayikra. It's actually a balakeda. Balakeda says on the memory of Chazal, Kol ha'osek b'Torahs Oila, Kehilu Ikriv Oila, he who deals with the Torah, the teachings of the Oila, it's as if he was Makar Victory sacrificed a burnt offering. She said, do you really think it means you said Eza Mekayman? You said the Mishnah of an Oila, it's if you're Makar of an Oila? No, that's not what it means. It means if he makes an Isuk, he makes his life's work to try to conceptualize and understand the meaning of the Oila, and that's how he lives, then it's as if he was Makar of the Oila. Because the whole idea of the Oila was to do that. So sometimes you don't have the external mashal, but you understand what the nimshal was and you work on it. That's the Oisik B'Torahs Oila. Ki'ilu Hikriv Oila. That's what it was for. The Mishkan is basically some kind of a external illustration of what we're supposed to be taking into our hearts and becoming. God help us, it's so terrible that we don't even have that now. I don't even have a Mishkan to demonstrate what's supposed to happen inside of me. I'm actually alone. And that's what I miss. I miss something which would make it easier to be able to lias bilvavi mishkan evneh, to build one in my heart, to build one in my mind. The Malbim writes in Yecheskel that day will come when man will accomplish this through the hard gullus that we're still in, at least culturally. And then we won't need a Beis HaMikdash anymore. And he points out a pasuk in Yecheskel, at the end of days, we'll only need a Beis HaMikdash, not for ourselves, for we will be walking Batei Mikdash. We need it for the world to know that God is among us. Would you believe it? Our goal is to become a Beis HaMikdash. That's what I want to bless ourselves and all Jews, that we should work hard and attain that, making our minds into a Kodesh HaKadoshim, our hearts into a Mizbeach. God should help us. We should be Zoichet to the Gula Shleima B'mher B'yameinu Amen. Shabbos.